Hello, it's Jessica Okoro. Welcome to the Stepping into STEM podcast. We are still on a mission to expose 1 million of you to the STEM industry by 2023. Today, our special guest is Emma Soopramanien. Emma is a final year BSc Neuroscience student and a part of the British Neuroscience Association Committee, also known as BNA, as a student and early careers representative. At BNA, Emma is the primary contact for both member and non-member students and early career researchers who have concerns. Emma's role at BNA also involves advising the council and committee on any decisions that would impact students, ECRs, or existing issues they may face. With this post on the committee, Emma aims to be a friendly face and a helping hand, to listen, learn, and do all she can do to amplify the voices that need it. Thank you for joining us, Emma.
It's nice to be here.
So, before I get in with the exciting questions we have, I'm going to do a little icebreaker with you. Is that okay?
That just takes me back to NCS icebreakers and the stress beforehand, but let's go.
You did an NCS. I did an NCS. I remember doing those.
You?
Yeah. I was a team lead, I believe. And the people I met there were great. Okay, so I'm going to dive in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dive in. Okay. What career would you pick from being an actor, a chef, or an engineer, and why?
No brainer, it's literally an actor.
An actor? Go on, tell me why.
I still am. I am #1 drama queen. Like there are videos of me at like 2 years old singing and dancing to Bollywood songs.
Oh.
And yeah, I've basically grown up on Bollywood. And like today I was involved in sort of small drama productions. And I've always said if I wasn't into my academia, I'd be trying out for like dramas and films and so on.
I mean, you could do both. I know a few scientists and people in the STEM field who have gone into, TV work and still do their arts and creativity.
Exactly. It's not mutually exclusive. You can have both. So yeah, you never know. Might see me on TV.
You never know. We might see you on TV. So tell me, why did you choose to study neuroscience?
So I always had an interest in the brain and what it's capable of. You might be aware there are those child-friendly encyclopedias that you can get from Waterstones and actually, funnily enough, even Lidl.
Yeah.
I have one too many of those human body encyclopedias. And reading those, I was acutely aware that there were so many pages about all of the other systems, but barely 2 pages on the brain. So that obviously piqued my interest. The lack of information was what kept me intrigued. And even what little information there was there kept me hooked. Like I can be poetic at this point. No, literally, I'll go for it. Whenever I heard anything about the brain and what it's capable of, it gave me that feeling like, like a little child looking up at the stars. You're admiring them, but you're hopelessly unable to count them. It's that sense of awe. Yeah, so it's that sort of sense of awe that was like, knowing that I could study neuroscience as a degree program, it was literally a no-brainer. Wait a second. That was an unintentional pun, I promise. I was about to say it was a no-brainer.
No, I was thinking, oh my gosh, you said 1 second, what's happened? No-brainer, great pun. So are there loads of universities that offer neuroscience as a degree?
I feel like definitely more than I expected, because I looked mainly on UCAS. UCAS was invaluable, and they had a function where you could search for the degree program and then put the universities that offer the said program on a map. So I feel like there are about 5 universities in London that offer neuroscience, and that's just pure neuroscience as a degree program. But I'm sure there are other universities out there that offer it as a joint program with psychology.
Oh, wow.
Because both of them are sort of different ways of looking at the same subject. It's very multidisciplinary as a subject, and both of them go hand in hand. So I know up north as well, Bristol, other places have very good neuroscience programs. But I know of 5 in London.
So say I'm looking to study neuroscience at university. What courses would I need to take prior, or would you suggest I take prior so that I could be well equipped?
So I personally took biology, chemistry, and maths as A levels. And biology and chemistry are definitely very good sort of assets to have based on the modules that you'll learn, because neuroscience, as I've said before, multidisciplinary, it brings together all of the sciences, biology, chemistry, even some physics, but physics isn't compulsory to apply for most neuroscience programs. You're sort of expected to have a general knowledge of physics, which you'd normally get in your GCSEs, to know things such as electrophysiology and so on. But the universities do support you if you don't have that knowledge, because I know of people who literally haven't the foggiest on physics. They sort of read up about it in their spare time just to sort of supplement their learning. So I'd say biology and chemistry are very, very good. Even the chemistry, in fact, you can sort of read about aside, but biology is definitely invaluable.
Okay. And with regards to, work experience, what would you suggest would be first steps?
Work experience. Now, me personally, I didn't actually get any work experience in the field before applying to neuroscience. My compulsory work experiences were, I think, like a one-day shadowing in a Waterstones and a couple of weeks at my local primary school.
Okay, so that's completely irrelevant to neuroscience. Yeah,
completely irrelevant. I'm not too sure that many of my peers have got an experience in the field, because most of the time when people think to get experience in neuroscience, they'd require sort of wet lab experience, so actually being hands-on in a laboratory. But I guess at that point, before applying to the course, you don't have a sort of embodied knowledge of how to go about doing things in a lab. So I feel like it's unlikely for you to get that sort of wet lab experience before applying to a degree program. But that being said, this is a few years ago outdated knowledge. You never know at this point. If you just put your foot in the door, you never know what opportunities will actually come forward to you. If you
100%.
If you've, let's say, looked up a lab and so on, you'd get in touch with a certain research head and say that you're interested. Maybe not wet lab experience, but you could get something else out of it.
Hey, Emma, you keep on saying wet lab experience, and when I think of neuroscience, I'm thinking of the brain. Are you telling me that in a lab, wet lab experience, you're actually working on someone's brain physically who's alive?
No, you're not actually. That's
good.
Imagine that you're in a lab and there's just a person just laying down being like, all right, do you feel anything? No, actually, when it comes to research, most of the time you end up using models. So model organisms that could be certain species like your sea slug, or rodent models. Most of the time rodent models are used to see a sort of embodied effect, because it's more similar to our nervous system than like human nervous systems than other sort of models out there. So most of the time you could be working on sections, so that's sort of slices of that rodent brain. And there are so many sort of techniques that you can do. So immunohistochemistry is something that comes into mind, that you sort of stain that brain with different, I don't want to say molecules, antibodies even, for you to visualize certain things. So most of the time, you're looking at a process or a pathway, and within that pathway, you're looking at a specific molecule or gene. And from there, you can sort of see the bigger picture and investigate. So most of the time, when it comes to wet lab research, you're thinking more molecules, genes, and the bigger effect, rather than a whole brain and probing.
Yeah, 100%. I understand what you're saying, Emma. And I'm sure there's actually models online that they use in labs where it's actually renders, 3D renders of a brain that they can utilize as well. I don't know if you've experienced anything like that before.
I've not actually. I do know that there are sort of people thinking about doing those renders that you're saying, but with more information such as molecular pathways and so on. That idea, I think I heard about when I think we did a 3-day coding course at that time, and we were thinking, we're overzealous, excited, and we're like, oh, shall we try and make an app? And then I think someone said that people are trying to do that. So there is, you can see the pathways in the brain, and you can have more information, such as, the molecules and the genes involved with what's important. So I feel like your idea, people are working on it. I just don't know if you've started it yet.
Oh, do you know what? I'm going to do some research after this recording and find out if it's been done already. Because I think that's
might as well.
Yeah, it sounds really exciting. So my next question for you is, tell me about your role at the BNA. It seems quite, advanced and very serious.
Funnily enough, I feel like that serious sort of perception I had as well. I got an email as I was a BNA member to be like, oh, would you like to apply for said role? And I looked at Council and Committee, and I was like, I'm going to be probably one of the youngest if I do get this role. But when I actually ended up virtually meeting Council and Committee, they are honestly a bundle of joy. They made me feel so welcome.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, it didn't feel sort of, oh, Emma, you're a little child in an adult's world. They treated me like an equal, and I'm still in awe about it sometimes. I'm like, oh, wow, these are very distinguished lecturers who sort of take my ideas on board and treat me as an equal, and it's brilliant. It's not even, serious white collar sort of vibes. It's great.
Yeah, and in all fairness, you are an equal and you're there for a reason. They need your expertise from the point of view that you're coming in from. I mean, you're a student, so you understand what the concerns and needs of a student are, and they probably don't have the access that you have. So you're probably, and I'm sure you are, a very invaluable member of the committee.
Well, thank you.
What? Yeah, no, 100%. So Emma, what made you decide to get a British Neuroscience Association membership? Normally people start, looking into memberships when they start working, when they're a bit further in their career. What prompted you?
Well, I'd like to say I was incredibly fortunate. My university had paid for the entire cohort's BNA membership because they do a lot more to sort of support students, support early career researchers, postgrads. They have many invaluable resources, and also festivals and symposiums and talks that would be wonderful to listen to regardless of where you're at in your career. My university and module organizers recognized that and actually took the liberty to pay for everyone's membership. And if they hadn't done that, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to apply for the role I'm in and actually be here today. So honestly, all thanks goes to them.
Wow. And I mean, what's the perks of being a BNA member whilst you're a student, other than, the festivals? And are these, activities and events free, or would a student have to pay for these things whilst they're being a member of the association?
So the BNA have many sort of resources that you could sort of read now, especially due to the pandemic. They've even put out webinars for homeschooling and home learning, written resources for younger years as well, Key Stage 4, Key Stage 5. But let's say for my sort of cohort of undergraduates, they'd have workshops, let's say about credibility in neuroscience. They'd have talks by distinguished researchers. They'd have symposiums over Christmas that are just very sort of light-hearted. Everyone dress up according to a theme and listen to some really interesting talks. We will have the flagship festival, BNA 2021, in April. Some of these, a large majority of these events are free, but select events such as the flagship festival, BNA 2021, there will be a small fee. But they've also thought about the fact that you'll be online, so they'll reduce the fee a bit, but obviously have to pay a little to sort of offset the cost of the festival.
100%.
Yeah, they think about sort of, let's say if you're not in a position to pay the entire fee, you can say, listen, need a little help here, but I'd really love to attend. And they'll do all that they can for you so that, you know, even make a small contribution and you can attend the festival, or even the symposium was an optional donation thing. So you can attend for free if you want as well. So they really think about the little things that, you know, people are struggling during a pandemic. What can they do? What can't they do?
No, yeah, that does sound great. I mean, with regards to getting your foot in the industry and kind of understanding how things work, do you have any mentors, any coaches, any sponsors that have helped you with, you know, engaging with senior individuals that are in the neuroscience industry?
Funnily enough, no. As in, I have my lecturers who have been really, really supportive. I've got a wonderful academic advisor, my dissertation supervisor, and whenever I would come to them saying, oh, listen, this is happening, they would, without fail, sort of boost my morale and give me sort of general advice about things. But in terms of how I should interact with and approach sort of senior neuroscientists, I guess I chose to be on my own at that point. I didn't go asking for advice or looking for mentorship. I guess because I enjoy the challenge. I just love sort of interacting with people, regardless of where they're at in the sort of neuroscience hierarchy, put it like that. And just sort of seeing what I can do by myself, which might not be, you know, the ideal route for everybody. But I really enjoy that sort of challenge of being like, okay, here's a distinguished member. What am I going to say to them, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. So just give me some insight. What kind of roles are available in this industry?
What kind of roles? Now, I know of many who go into further study. So masters, PhDs, who tend to end up in academia, research, lecturing, teaching. There's also the pharmaceutical industry, so those who discover and develop and market new medicines. So they'd sort of translate the neuroscientific research into useful products. There's also biotechnology is really interesting. They develop the sort of technologies and products to help just generally improve either the lives of the public or the health of our planet. Funnily enough, I've learned about policy and administration being a role that many neuroscience graduates go into. So they sort of be with, let's say, the government or an organization, and they ensure that the scientists or companies and their products that will comply with sort of current legislation, national and international requirements, and also science communication and public engagement. It's actually
also important.
Yeah, business as well is something that many people don't think they can get into, but it's very possible for you to be in STEM, have a revolutionary idea and be able to market that. And speaking of marketing, even the media, like all of your science reporters out there, most of them would have started off with a science degree. So literally for so many degrees, the world is your oyster. I've learned that, employers aren't really fixated on your grades or your degree classification. They sort of look at the transferable skills that you've learned. So communication, problem solving, resilience, your passion for the role. So regardless of your degree, I've learned that the world is literally your oyster.
100%. Yeah, I agree with that. Especially, you know, with myself, I studied pharmaceutical and cosmetic science at university, and running the charity for a while, I went on to, you know, become a tech project manager at the Times newspaper. How bizarre is that? It's so different with regards to what I studied at university. And then, you know, I've gone further into project management and done, you know, events management, and I've advised, you know, vice presidents for government. So I do understand that, you know, there's transferable skills and you can go into different things, which is really exciting. It really just opens up so many more opportunities if your mind is open to, you know, exploring that. So what do you think you're going to do after you finish university? Because you've gained a lot of experience and insight through the BNA.
That's true. I'm currently looking into studying a master's, so ideally in cognitive neuroscience. Down the line, I would love to do a PhD, but I'll definitely reassess that wish nearer the time. because it is a glorious thing to do, but understandably, it's actually a huge commitment. So I would think about doing a PhD. In an ideal world, I'd probably do something in public engagement, I think. Possibly even TV, like speak it into existence, why not? Like I've seen sort of the potential, let's say, you might know Wonders of the Universe style, like Professor Brian Cox.
Yeah.
So he does, his research, a revolutionary, brilliant scientist with his own sort of show that people would watch and learn. So imagine a neuroscience-based show, like why not?
Yeah, I mean, becoming a science communicator is an amazing, career. I've met a few people that are in the industry and they feel so fulfilled being able to share knowledge and information with the general public. What's quite interesting is seeing people's reactions to, these pieces of information, which is a part of everyday lives, but they just were not aware is also quite rewarding as well, from what I've been told. I don't know if it's necessarily true, but what I've been told is, yeah, it's quite exciting. So Emma, I really struggled with maths and science at school. And I know trying to study the different parts of the brain was quite daunting for me. And I really struggled with that at GCSE, because I remember we had exams where we had to, recite different parts of the brain. For someone that's like me who's dyslexic, I'm dyslexic, and I used to struggle sometimes with memorizing certain parts of things, and it just really played on my confidence, because there were times when I did learn it, but because I didn't feel like the smartest person academically, and I just knew I had challenges, I was really put off the sciences. It ended well. I ended up getting A's and A stars, so it's fine. But for someone it's a good story, good end to the story anyway. But for someone who may be in my position, what advice would you give them with regards to how they could build themselves up with confidence in studying maths and science beyond their GCSEs?
I feel like if you have the sort of drive and determination, there is nothing really stopping you. I feel like the biggest limitations most of the time are the ones that you put on yourselves. So it could be a fact of you possibly taking out some extra time to at least just one concept. If you feel like you're not too happy with, spend some time on that. Maybe try a different way of learning. If you feel like just the attempting to memorize by rote isn't working, possibly a different sort of media, like a YouTube video or a educational TV show or something. It's sometimes just changing the way you look at certain things could sort of make you have some type of eureka moment. So
I agree.
Thinking sciences, there's a particular topic you're not, let's just talk about remembering aspects of the brain, let's say. I definitely remember, I feel like it was first year, my lecturer ended up putting a cartoon video up of, I feel like it was a mouse singing through the different regions of the brain. And if you just remember that, I kind of want to find it now, but if you just remember that song, you'd be able to just point to different places on a sort of invisible diagram in front of you. And certain things like that could trigger your memory more than, let's say, attempting to write things over and over. So in terms of answering your question in general advice, it's if your normal method isn't working for you, try and find something else that could sort of stimulate you in a way for you to look at the subject with fresh eyes and with curiosity and excitement, rather than feeling sort of down about it and, oh no, I'm not as smart as everybody else, etc.
Yeah, no, I agree, because that's how I managed to study and actually excel with my GCSEs, because I had to come up with alternative routes of learning and alternative, methods and hands-on experiments in my kitchen. Emma, thank you so much for joining us today. You've been so informative and I love your story, and I'm so excited to see you on TV soon.
Thank you. Let's speak it into existence.
Let's speak it into existence. Emma, is there any last notes you would like to make? Any information you want to share with the audience before I say goodbye?
Last notes. I feel like I've talked a lot about sort of academia and so on, but the mental health side of things, I feel like I'd like to touch on. That when it comes to university, quite a few people say, yes, it's possibly some of the best experiences they've had for various reasons. Most of the time it's the parties. But in terms of taking care of yourself and taking care of your mental health, it's something that's incredibly important, regardless of what field you're going to, but especially in STEM. I feel like there's that sort of invisible competition, perhaps with others, but most of the time with yourself, that, you know, you should strive for perfection, if not as close as you can get. But sort of having that mindset that, listen, you're here for a reason, you're doing your best, you balance your work with a healthy sort of social life and sleep. Gosh, the importance of sleep.
Yeah, sleep is really important.
Yeah, it's
100%.
something that we end up neglecting. I feel like you might have seen it. There are memes about there being like, you can have 2 out of 3, a good social life, good grades, or sleep. Like, why can't you have a balance, you know? I feel
100%.
like, so for me, in terms of, you've mentioned about your challenges with sort of the sciences and dyslexia. For me, I feel like it was more in terms of being the sort of branded as the gifted child or the high achieving student, that things definitely came to me a lot quicker, but it gave me that sort of view that I should strive for perfection, because the idea was that you're more than capable of this for any target that was out there. It
100%.
didn't feel unhealthy as such, but sort of pushing yourself too hard will ultimately make you crumble to some degree in the end. I feel like this might be a nice sort of thing for people to hear, that I actually didn't achieve the expected grades I should have for A-levels. Which, which some people probably would not expect. And I feel like, due to having the mindset that I've talked about, that sort of being more capable, like, you know, to reach whatever target you want to reach, that sort of obviously hit me a bit when I didn't receive my expected grades. And I actually had to go through clearing to get my university place.
Oh, wow. I had to go through clearing as well. Yeah.
And despite my grades were still impressive grades, so to say, but because I'd set that target for myself, my firm and conditional offers that I had accepted were both very prestigious unis that required the highest of grades. But I guess I just want to say that, you know, even if you don't succeed in one thing, I feel like everything happens for a reason, because I've touched on this earlier. If the Queen Mary cohort did not pay for our subscriptions, I wouldn't have been able to apply for the BNA, and then I wouldn't have been here at all. So any sort of setback as well, on the topic of mental health, any sort of setback, just think that you're taking one step back to take like 5 steps forward. And that's something that you should really think about in STEM, because it's very possible that you don't achieve even that expected trajectory that you envisaged. And
I think that's so important that you kind of touched on that point, because it's not a topic that's usually spoken about, and especially with STEM is very academic focused. Sometimes it could be quite, you know, stressful, and it can have an impact on your mental health. So Emma, I 100% agree, and I love your last notes. I really appreciate you joining us today. We really appreciate your time. And thank you to the listeners.
To talk to you.
Oh, thank you, Emma. No, it was great. And thank you to the listeners for joining today's episode as well. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at STEM Socials, and join us next time for another episode of Stepping into STEM. Take care.